Welcome to the Golden Hour, the podcast community where moms and moms-to-be hear stories from other mothers and top experts in the pregnancy and postpartum care field. You can visit goldenhour.fm for more information, resources, and all other episodes. You can also find us at goldenhour.fm on Instagram for comments and questions. Hello. Welcome to today's episode of The Golden Hour. I am your host, Dr. O, and I'm joined by a dear friend, Dawoon. Dawoon is originally from Korea and immigrated to the U.S. in 2012 with her sisters. You immigrated to the U.S. When did you guys immigrate to the U.S.? 1996. 1996, they immigrated to the U.S. with her two sisters. And then in 2012, Dawoon and her sister started the company Coffee Meets Bagel. Quick plug, that's how I met my husband. So, I'm a big fan of you and your company. It's a dating app for singles looking for serious relationships. And it works. It really works. She was running the company remotely in Hawaii as the founder and chief dating officer when she got pregnant and gave birth to her beautiful daughter, Sonara. She has since moved to Portugal with her husband and currently lives there. And Sonara has now turned 3. And in her free time, Dawoon enjoys learning more about relationships, spirituality, parenting, personal development. And so a big welcome to you, my dear. This is going to be such a great episode.
Thank you. So good to see you. Oh no.
So good to see you. So good to have you. As we were chatting kind of pre-episode, I've been inspired by so many people in my life. I'm pretty fortunate that way. And I still remember our conversations when U and I visited you all in Hawaii and talking about pregnancy and postpartum and motherhood. And so really this episode is an opportunity to share your wealth of knowledge, share your honest perspective. And so I'm just so grateful for your time.
Thank you.
I'm also even more grateful because I know there's a big time zone difference. So coming all the way from Portugal is a big deal. You're like one of our first international guests. I feel like this is pretty darn special. And so we're going to get started. We're going to get started at the beginning. And the beginning to me is, maybe the months or years as you and Jack were kind of thinking about starting a family. What were your thoughts about motherhood, before conceiving, before getting pregnant?
Yeah, I think probably a majority of my friends who's become a mom and share a similar view. But at the time I got pregnant, it was definitely like a planned pregnancy. We wanted to start a family. And I was only really primarily concerned about two things. One is going through a healthy pregnancy. I guess 3 things: going through a healthy pregnancy, giving birth smoothly, and then, how do I set up infrastructure for the post-birth life so that my life is not too disrupted. I can still work and my life is not going to get too chaotic. So I think those are the 3 things that I was primarily just concerned about.
Yeah. Was there anything that you were excited about?
Of course, having a baby was, exciting, but I think I was just really fully in a prep mode.
Yeah. You sound like me. You sound like how my brain works. I think naturally the Bay Area attracts a lot of type A, very driven, we want to control and plan everything kind of people. And so it sounds like you went into pregnancy trying to prep yourself as much as possible. What were part of your preparation? Was it talking to people? Was it doing research, reading books? What was that like for you?
I think all of the above. I am lucky that I have 2 sisters who I started Coffee Meets Bagel with, who already had 2 kids of their own each. Mm-hmm. And so of course they were my primary source of knowledge. And then I also did a lot of research on my own. And so all the stuff that they did, that they, advised that I do, and then all the stuff that they didn't do, that they were like, I wish I did that. I just kind of got a download of that and then just implemented basically.
Yeah. Your sisters obviously are a wealth of resource. What were the non-sister resources that you went to? Any specific books or websites or blogs that you really liked?
There is a book called, which I'm sure you've heard of, this female economist actually basically debunked all this myth about, what to eat. There is a lot of do this, don't do this. I think when it comes to pregnancy. And of course, I think carrying a life inside of you is a big responsibility because you don't want to do something that's going to negatively impact the baby. So I think most of to-be moms are very careful. And so I think that book did a really good job. Do you know the name of it? I can't really recall the name of it right now.
Yeah, it's a very popular book. Yeah, it's called Expecting Better. And she also has a follow-up book, I think, called Crib Streets.
Okay, yeah, Expecting Better. Yeah. Expecting Better was a good one. And then also, so that kind of, because they debunked a lot of myth about, okay, what you can eat, what you can't eat. It kind of like relieved me of, any anxiety or worry about, I feel like eating poke, for example. I think we all make personal choices about what's okay, what's okay, what's not okay. And then so it was nice to have like basically statistics around those things versus just being told, okay, you cannot eat this and you can eat this.
Exactly. I always say that medicine is so much an art more so than a science, that everything is nuanced and gray. And especially when it comes to pregnancy, very appropriately, people are very protective over the baby that's growing within. But sometimes at the adversity of the person growing the baby, right? Because you're told no, 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 no. But what's the rationale behind the no? And is that no really justified? And do we even really know?
Yeah.
So it can be confusing. So glad that you had that book. Glad that you had your sisters. What were some of the things that your sisters shared with you that you found to be like the most helpful or most empowering?
I think one of the most helpful was, hey, like if you can secure a postpartum nanny. So in Korea, I'm from Korea. So in Korea, it is like a very expected thing to do for moms to, after they give birth, we go into this like birth center where there's like a team of support, 24 hours care, like nurses and postpartum doulas who actually provide you with like very nourishing food and who takes care of your baby so that you can take care of yourself and recover. And your husband actually goes to the center as well and stay there with you. And so we have a very like that kind of setup available in Korea. Of course, we can have that available in the US. But so instead of that, there is a team of Korean moms, like senior moms, basically my mom's age mostly, who fly to different parts of the US to provide this postpartum care for, it doesn't have to be Korean only, but most of their clients are Korean because this comes from Korean cultural practice. And so, interviewing them and hiring them so that I can have the support that I needed. This was actually during COVID too. So of course, like we had a problem with, I was supposed to have my mother-in-law's come over and my mom also, but nobody could come over. And so that was really important. I think that was like a real game changer and lifesaver. And also just not being advised to put so much pressure on myself when it comes to things like breastfeeding, when it comes to things like sleep training. Again, like I think going back to, there's so many like, okay, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that. There's a lot of that information going on. And I think that could really put a lot of pressure on the moms. So just, hey, like everything's going to work out eventually. So don't put so much pressure into having to do certain things or freak out just because they're not latching, or if you have to pump or if you have to go to formula, it doesn't really matter. So I think that was very nice to hear.
Yeah. No, I think the same of us who have the tendency to like want to control and plan everything. We also tend to put a lot of pressure on ourselves to like be the perfect, mother, or be the perfect pregnant person or whatever that is. And so having loving voices that remind you that's not realistic and you can let go. So important. And I really would love to talk more about what's so special. And I'm to be honest, pretty envious of this Korean culture and this expectation that postpartum, there's literally not even a village, like an entire center to support you and your family. But this isn't necessarily a pop quiz. And so whatever you just know, like from growing up, where does that come from? Like, is it historical? Is there like a social expectation? What's your understanding of something that to me seems so valuable and important?
Well, so I think just in Korean kind of traditional medicine, the belief is that after you lose a lot of blood, like when you give birth, right? Like it's like a lot of energy being drained. It's a huge undertaking for the mom. And the traditional belief is that if at this time you don't take care of yourself, if the mom isn't able to take care of themselves, then there's going to be a repercussion for the mom's health for the rest of her life. And it's very important that, I mean, I think it's very similar in China as well. It's very important that you keep yourself warm. Like you're basically under the blanket. Like you don't even leave the room. You don't even shower actually. And then everything is supposed to be served to you because you're supposed to conserve energy and like recover. So the idea comes from that. Of course, in the old days, you had a village of people, like your relatives, because everybody lived together. And also the village was much more well connected, helping you out. And as we became more modernized and, you know, people started moving away from and then forming the bigger family and forming more nucleus family, this kind of like the centers that naturally developed to provide the similar level of care that women used to receive when they gave birth.
You know, so much of what inspired this podcast is just recognizing that at least here in the US, I don't think that we support people postpartum as well as we could. And so I find myself inspired by what I would call like a postpartum utopia, like the idea of like, yes, societies have modernized, but in countries like Korea, I know I had one of our mutual friends, Midi, on for an episode a while back. And she grew up in Taiwan, same idea. Like there's this concept of like, I think she called them like hotels, postpartum hotels, but really that person who just birthed needs to rest and needs that support. And in really trying to learn that, you know, obviously culture in the US is very different. It's a very individualistic society, but how in the confines of our and a healthcare system that is relatively broken, how can we figure out ways to support postpartum people better? And, you know, concepts like the family structures that you described in Korea, to me, seem like a reflection of something that we should be able to replicate here. And I've heard, I don't know if you've heard, I've heard of hotels like in, I think, New York and LA has maybe something similar. Have you heard of those before?
Not.
Yeah. Part of doing this podcast is really to just call out what we can do better, but also brainstorm ways that we can do better. So conversations like the ones I'm having with you get the wheels in my brain are turning of like, okay, what can we do? How can we make this into a functional proposition? But anyways,
you know, I think just one note on that. I think it is because I benefited so much. Of course, I wish all moms could benefit from service like this. It is something that in the old days everybody got to experience, but now I recognize that I'm in such a privileged position to be able to afford that kind of service, right? It's not even available to, I think it's not even like, unless you're someone like me, Korean or Chinese background, or, you know, culturally, this is like a thing. You might not even know where to find these kinds of services. A lot of these postpartum care folks only speak Korean, only speak Chinese. So, you know, my friends ask for them, but they you know, the language is a barrier, right? And then also they're expensive here, in the US. And so I fully recognize that not everyone can afford that. And I think everyone could, you know, hopefully we all have friends, we have neighbors, we do have our own community that we can rely on. And I think moms, or if any, you know, all the listeners who are to be moms or going to be in the future moms, I think we should think about, okay, how do I set up a support system? You know, when I do a baby shower, right? It's a good opportunity to make the ask, right? Or I think it would be so wonderful if the more experienced moms like me, you know, kind of get together to lend support to the community members who are becoming mom for the first time. So that we can ensure that they are provided and taken care of, at least for the first few weeks of after they come from, you know, come home with the baby. And then I think not only providing food and whatnot, but also like being there to answer any questions, because there's so many, everything's new, right? Everything's new. If they're not latching, is there something wrong? And I think, again, like being responsible for another human being is such a huge task, that it's so nice to have someone who was there, who went through it, to be able to answer questions, right? And so I think you could almost like structure as a gift, like the wise moms of the neighbors, like let's actually like get together to give this gift to a new mom who's becoming a mom in the community. I think that would be such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that is beautiful. I mean, literally gives me goosebumps. And what you're describing essentially is what our communities used to look like, hundreds of years ago, right? That the essence of the village was that you were surrounded by either women in your family across generations or women, in the next house over, and that they all taught each other and supported each other, and you were constantly getting information, so that by the time you became a mom yourself, you likely saw many births even, or you likely, supported an aunt or a cousin as they were caring for their newborn, versus now everything feels so new every time. And, of course, we're so fortunate that we have so much information and data available, and that's where we kind of find ourselves. But I find that I romanticize the past as imperfect as it was. There are parts of the past that, we can really work on. I love that.
I think someone should really, maybe you and I can create this.
Yeah, we can do it. See, I knew it. I love it. No, but really just gifting your wisdom to, I'm thinking something, I like alliteration. So I'm like, wise women, women wisdom. But yeah, gifting your wisdom to the people that you know and love. I, very selfishly, U and I are still contemplating whether or not we're going to start our family. But I recognize as I'm listening to you, I'm like, wow, well, great. If we do that, I can count, like I have 20, 30 people that I can just go to be my wise women.
Yeah.
I definitely am not going to have to reinvent the wheel. So I kind of, maybe we very strategically are waiting to be the very, very last ones, because we'll just have so many answers already in place for us. So we already started kind of talking a bit about postpartum, and we're definitely going to do a deeper dive there. I'd love to hear more about your pregnancy. How was it, being pregnant in Hawaii, of such a beautiful place? But how was your pregnancy for you? What were some of the highs and lows of pregnancy?
My pregnancy was honestly very uneventful, which is nice, except at the very end, mostly felt like very, good. At the very end, I did have I forgot the exact term, but I think there's a condition where because the baby becomes the baby was so low in my body, my pubic bone actually came apart, and it was very, very painful.
Pubic symphysis separation.
Yeah.
Oof. Yeah.
So I was like, oh my God, that this is a thing. So for the last 2 weeks of the, before giving birth, I couldn't walk. So I was a little almost bedridden. But other than that, it was good.
Other than that, my goodness, how did you manage? So your OB was just like, okay, I guess just rest in bed and then come on in when it's time to have the baby?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. Did you, in that experience, did you get sent to any specialist, like a pelvic specialist or anything like that? Pelvic floor specialist?
I did. And then, so she came to help me because I couldn't really walk. She came to help me in my home before giving birth. But honestly, there wasn't much that she could do at that time because I just really had to minimize walking and things like that. But she helped me postpartum to recover.
How did she help you postpartum? What were some of the things that you guys worked on together?
There were series of exercises that I could do to ensure my pubic bone came together, and then just to strengthen pelvic health.
Yeah. And was this pelvic physical therapist someone that you found on your own? Like you did your own research, or was it someone that your OB had recommended for you?
My midwife recommended her.
Okay. Oh, did you work with a midwife?
Yeah, I did. Was
that something, I'm fortunate enough that I work in what we call collaborative practice. So it means our group is OB doctors and midwives. And I'm fortunate that I was trained by midwives in my OB/GYN residency. So I am very pro midwives. What can you tell us from your perspective, what your understanding of midwives are and why you chose to work with one for your pregnancy?
So actually the clinic that I was at was exactly that setup where there were midwives and in collaboration with the OB/GYN. And the idea, when I was doing different research, the thing that sort of, it spoke to me and then to me made sense is that doctors are typically there to provide surgery, right? In case something happens or there's some kind of complication. But in terms of delivering baby, everybody should be able to do it most of the time, so there shouldn't be any intervention that's necessary. I actually ended up working with the doctor because there was something wrong with the birth process for me. So I'm really, really glad that I didn't just work with the midwife because at the end, my doctor actually came to help me deliver the baby. But that was kind of, I was like, okay, that made sense to me.
Yeah, no, you're right. That midwives are what we call the experts in normal physiologic birth, and that's why they're such a great part of the team, because for those who are fortunate to follow the normal course, and there's minor variations in that, being supported by a midwife is exactly what anyone deserves. But you're right, there's sometimes where labor can take a hard left, or the delivery can have an unexpected complication. And so really, it's nice to have that safety of us as backups.
I'm
really
so happy. I'm
Go ahead.
so thankful that it was like a team of made by the doctor, because it was when my birth it got elongated and nothing actually went as I expected. So I was like so grateful that Dr. B, my doctor, was there in the end to help me deliver.
Yeah. It's up to you, but do you feel comfortable sharing a bit about your birth story? Kind of what was your plan going into it, right? So oftentimes people make a birth plan.
Yeah.
Going back to us type A people.
Yeah.
And that is an experience in of itself. What was your birth plan, and how did that contrast with your birth experience?
Yeah. So before I get into, I think like this whole pregnancy, birth, and motherhood, like one thing that it has taught me is that like it's just like a journey of total unexpected. It's very magical, and also sometimes it can just take a very twisted turn that could feel frightening. And in the end, I think it's like it always works out so beautifully. But you just can't plan. You just can't plan, and you kind of have to surrender to what is. So I think it's like a big practice of that again and again. Just from the very beginning, it was that, and so now I've become a lot more like, okay, there's like only so much I can plan, and I'm just gonna let's just let it ride this and enjoy the ride. Yeah. But anyway, with my birth, I had all this like birth plan planned out. And I was like, oh yeah, maybe I'm not going to have epidural and, all this stuff. When my labor started coming and, it got really bad. I heard that if you get to a point where you can't walk, then that's when you want to go to the hospital. That's what I did. And luckily my hospital was only 10-minute drive. And then when they checked how much I was dilated like 1 centimeter. So they told me I have to go back home. And so like, I remember like bursting out crying because I was in so much pain, went back. And then like 7 hours later, I was like, I can't take this anymore. So I went again. By that time it was like 10 PM. And then they were like, you're still like 2 centimeter dilated. And I was like, you're kidding. I just refused to go home. I was like, I can't go home anymore. I can't get in the car. So they put me on a waiting room because they couldn't admit me. And so I was kind of there waiting like all night, waiting for the cervix to dilate more. And the next day at 7 a.m., I was awake all night because I was in so much pain. But they couldn't give me anything. Next morning, finally, I was like 2.5 dilated, and I think they really felt sorry for me. So they finally admitted me, and I was like, oh my God, please give me something to manage my pain. And they finally gave me that. And then for the next 48 hours, I still wouldn't dilate. Like, I think it's something, I'm not really sure what my body was trying to do, but I just did not dilate. And then my midwife at that point was like, hey, I think this is, not a typical path. And at this point, I think maybe we should try to do C-section because it's just not happening. And so at 48 hours later, they actually this hospital actually didn't have anesthesiologists or anything ready. So everyone had to be called. So they all showed up at 11 PM. The doctor came too. And then I actually got like a large dosage of epidural just so that I can get into the operation. So they did all that already. And my doctor was like, you know what? I'm going to check your cervix one last time. Yeah. And he checked. And then when he checked it, I was dilated 5 centimeter. So he was like, hey, if you're willing to, this is totally up to you. It's 11 PM. I think you're moving. So if you're willing to wait until the morning, I think you should be able to give birth naturally. Like, what do you want to do? And I'm really, really grateful that my doctor just at that point everybody was called and they're waiting to get me the operations room, and he still gave me an option to just not go into the operation room if I chose not to. And so I decided to wait. And then the next day I was able to push, and my pushing just took 5 minutes. So that was a good part.
What? That's like, for the audience, that's unheard of. That's pretty amazing, especially for a first time mom. Wow.
Yeah. So just like that, my cervix not dilating was, I don't know what happened there, but that was totally not expected. And they don't know why that was the case.
Yeah. I mean, my biggest takeaway from that epic story, if you will, the epic journey was the fact that your OB gave you agency. I think that so many things that come up are the best type of healthcare is one that empowers the person that you're caring for, especially I think in obstetrics, because so much happens to your body, but you want to feel like you also have a say about how the things happen to your body. And so the fact that your OB, despite literally calling people from home late at night, and those people were probably not too happy, that's okay. Your OB was like, no, for my patient, the best thing is actually give her a chance to see if her body wants to do what it naturally was meant to do. God, that's such an empowering story.
Yeah, I am so grateful for, that doctor, because Dr. B, because I also know that it's a risk for the doctors, because if some kind of complication happens, right, then it could look badly on them. But he wanted to give me a chance to do it naturally if I was up for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And
it was also encouraging for him to hear, like, he was like, I think you can do it. I think you can do it if you want to.
Yeah. He believed in you, right? It's like, he was like your own little cheerleader, except he probably didn't have pom-poms, but that's essentially what he was doing. And I think, those are the moments when I think about my biggest wins as a clinician even are the moments when a patient surprises themselves. I think one of the reasons why I practice OB is I truly think that women are badasses. They are the strongest people ever. And birth is sometimes the moments when they realize how strong they are. I have had patients literally say verbatim, I did not know how strong I was until this moment. And it's whether it's your physical fortitude, your mental fortitude, your emotional fortitude, there's something about that journey that reminds you that you really are the strongest version of yourself. So I'm not surprised that your OB was cheering you on, because he's probably seen stories like that before. Wow. So I'd like to take a moment to tell you this is my passion project based on years of experience as an OB/GYN doctor. I aim to empower moms and moms-to-be and those in the pregnancy and postpartum care space. If you appreciate what I do, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share with your friends so it can reach more people like you. You can visit goldenhour.fm for more information, resources, and all other episodes. If you have any requests, suggestions, or questions for future episodes, please email me at hello@goldenhour.fm or leave us a comment at goldenhour.fm on Instagram. And so Sonara comes out, flying out in 5 minutes. Although the interesting thing was she didn't have a name. This is my fun fact for you. When she came out, she was just like, baby girl. Yeah. Baby girl came out in 5 minutes.
Yeah, because we didn't find out the gender of the baby, because we wanted to be, we wanted it to be a surprise. And we were like, oh, this is going to be the biggest surprise of our life. And so when she came out, and then, the Dr. B said, oh, it's a girl, I was, of course, like beyond, I would have been beyond, happy, beyond moon, whatever the expression is.
Over the moon.
Yeah, over the moon, girl or boy. But I was very happy to find out that it was a girl. And we didn't want to come up with any names, because we wanted to see what name inspires when we met her. And I think in my head, what I imagined was, as soon as I saw her, like, some name would pop in my head. That's not what happened. And we didn't have a name. We didn't have any name that, like, just came to us. And we had to pick a name, right? Because you have to register before you get discharged. And so, because we didn't want to force it, we named her Baby. So she was named, Baby, on her birth certificate. She was named Baby Smith Kang. I think, Baby Smith Kang was her name.
Yeah, I love it. It feels very celebrity of you to like give her a name that is a little controversial. And then what I love about, and I know this because we're friends, what I love is about like when the name was like officially chosen. Do you want to tell about the name
Yeah,
choosing
yeah.
ceremony, if
Well,
you will?
yes. Well, so I mean, the idea was that my husband, this was really like credit to him. I think with anything in life, he's very kind of intentional about how he wants to do things. And let's not just do things because that's what the world does. And so this, let's not name the name because we want, we can see what inspires. That was sort of his idea. And then he also, when he found out that in Korean tradition, at their 1 year birthday, we actually, as a fun thing, it's not like we really believe in this, but baby's supposed to crawl to a different objects. Like we layer like several objects that represents a career. So, pen could be a writer, like iPhone could be an engineer, whatever, right? And the baby just crawls and grabs one of the objects, and that's what they're supposed to become. That's like a fun game that we do. And he thought it was really amusing, and he was like, "Oh, I think it would be really fun if we have like potential 3 candidate of names, and then we have the baby crawl to one of the names. That way, baby can actually choose their name. It's very empowering instead of us giving it to them." And so he thought that could be really cool. And so we were like, okay, why don't we do that since we don't actually have a name right now that particularly we want to give her. And so the idea was we were supposed to have 3 names, and whenever we have the 3 names ready and she's ready to crawl, we would have this naming day ceremony. In the end, we actually ended up cheating a little. We did have a naming ceremony, but we only really had one name, candidate that we could think of. And so we had 3 toys that she was crawling to. We did this when she was 8 months, when she started crawling. And all of his side of the family was visiting, so we could do it as a family together. We had 3 toys, and under the 3 toys, there was only one name, Sanara. So she crawled to her name, but all 3 of it was Sanara, which is her name.
Well, it's still to me one of the most unique naming stories I've ever heard. And even if in the end there was only one option for her to choose, she still chose it. She still had to crawl to a certain direction. It's still such a wonderful story. I think it's the funnest.
Photograph and video so that we can say, hey, you chose your own name.
Yeah, that's good. That's so special for her. And so, your birth story was incredible, and especially, for a first time mom, birth can be a while. It can be, 24, 48 hours, but for you, what I'm hearing is that you essentially like did not dilate for 48 hours, and then in an instant, about to be rolled to the operating room, your cervix dilates. So pretty epic birth story. How was your postpartum recovery for you? What was that postpartum period like?
It was a wild ride also because I had the postpartum nanny for the 3 months, of my after baby we came home. It was wonderful. She was an amazing Korean, like really wise mom, and like we chatted a lot. She gave me so many tips and life advice. And she was one of those ladies who's like just so grateful for everything in life. And so, not only did she help, like really care for me, but like she was really like an uplifting person. And so that first 3 months was great. And then she left. And I don't know if it's because of that, and who knows, right? Like who knows why things happen in life. And, some things that happen in life we'll never understand. And like one night, this was like June, I still remember June 10th or something, like exactly almost 3 months after I gave birth. I was awake at night pumping, and I finished pumping and I tried to go back to sleep, and I couldn't fall asleep. And, it was one of those nights where, sometimes you just have a hard time falling asleep, right? But for whatever reason, instead of just being like, oh yeah, well, I guess I'll just fall asleep eventually, body just freaked out, and I went into this like crazy spiral of like panic attack on how I might have made up this whole story that I was never going to be able to fall asleep. And sleep is one of those things where if you don't relax, you're not going to be able to fall asleep. So because I wasn't
Yeah.
relaxing, I ended up having like staying awake the whole night. And for the next 7 days, I did not sleep. I couldn't sleep
Jeez.
at all. Yeah. So that I have to say, I mean, of course I wasn't expecting this to happen. And I was so confused as to what was going on with myself. And I never heard of this kind of thing happening to mom. I've heard of postpartum depression, but I was like, what is this? I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't think that it was connected to the birth. And so the first 3 months, amazing bliss. And then the next, I would say a year, it was a huge struggle trying to get out of this like major anxiety, panic state that I've somehow fell into. Yeah, totally unexpected.
Yeah. You know, clearly I'm talking to you now, goodness, about 2 years after that, if Snar is now almost 3, already 3. What in that journey, right? As you first have this acute sense of like, okay, of I can't sleep, it's turning into panic. It's now kind of turning into anxiety that sounds like lasted for up to a year. Where in that journey did you kind of come to learn about what you experienced? And what do you feel like the parts of that you learned that you want to share and help teach other women about?
Yeah, well, so first of all, I was very lucky because I was able to get in touch with, well, actually, first of all, like because it was during COVID, psychiatrists were so booked out. And so I couldn't find a psychiatrist in Hawaii who was available to me. And luckily, one of my friends had a psychiatrist in California that she was a patient of, and then she introduced me because I was like having so much anxiety. And then speaking to her, I realized, oh, this is actually considered postpartum depression. And this terminology is so confusing to me because I was like, but I'm not depressed. I just have anxiety. And she said, oh, actually, this is like postpartum depression is like a very like a parent term that we use to describe depression and anxiety. And so it is actually it is a symptom of postpartum depression. And when I dug into it more, it's not as uncommon as I thought. Of course, it's not. This is not an experience of most moms, and so I don't want to scare anyone. But also, it's not like something that only you are going through, right? Which is kind of like what I felt like because I didn't hear this story before. But when I dug into it more, I did find, a community of people who actually went through this and came out on the other side, which gave me so much hope. Because when you're in it, it just feels like there's no other side. And so, connecting with the psychiatrist who actually kind of gave me perspective that, hey, this is not abnormal. This is not unique to you. A lot of women actually has gone through this and they've come out on the other side. So you can do this. I know it's hard right now, but you are going to come out on the other side. Knowing that and was a huge game changer.
Yeah. No, you said it so well yourself in that sometimes being postpartum can feel isolating just by the sheer nature of like you're just home a lot more because you're breastfeeding and you're caring for this newborn. But sometimes postpartum can feel isolating when you emotionally are in a space that you're not used to. And I think that as much as us as clinicians try to, check in with patients and make sure that they're aware that in all the bliss that happens with caring for a newborn and that new love and that tenderness and joy, your body physically and emotionally and mentally is also going through its own potential struggles. And so I do think that sometimes when I have those one-on-one moments in clinic, I can tell that the person I'm talking to feels so alone. And I think that sadness and that hurt that my heart feels and empathy has inspired moments like this where I want women to know that they're not alone, that as you said so beautifully, like you'll get to the other side, and that getting to the other side takes work. It doesn't happen just like casually. It does take work, but there is that, the other side of the rainbow, if you will, or getting to that place of healing. So thank you so much for sharing that. As you worked with the psychiatrist, what were part of the things that helped you get to your place of recovery and emotional mental health?
Yeah, so for me, because I was so worried about sleep, and because I had so much anxiety 24/7, this was the first time I actually I couldn't work. Like it was like I wasn't in a state that I could work. But at the same time, if I didn't work, like then I still needed something to do, right? Because otherwise, I would just sit there just being anxious state. And so I ended up enrolling myself in a intensive psychiatrist, what do you call it? Intensive care unit in it wasn't a program designed specifically for mom. It was just, it was a program designed for general adult mood disorder, just because my symptom it was postpartum depression, but it wasn't a classic postpartum depression. So they, when they assessed me, they thought I would benefit better from just joining more general adult mood program. So I actually went through that program for 8 weeks, just mostly doing 6 hours of combination of, it was CBT based, group therapy, individual work, one-on-one therapy, as well as like medical help. So that, giving myself the space and the time to be able to take a break from work and kind of work on my mental health. I think that really helped me gradually start coming back to, at least be able to calm myself down so that I could relax enough to sleep.
Yeah. No, I mean, so much of what can be hard when patients or women experience postpartum depression, and you're right, it's a catch-all for so many different things. It kind of is considered like a spectrum of different things, including postpartum anxiety. And sometimes when you're in the thick of it is when you're the most vulnerable, and sometimes it's even hardest to engage. And so it's really important to understand the resources that are out there that are available, hopefully connecting either with a really good, through your OB or your midwife, like a really good psychiatrist or therapist, and they're going to know about, programs like, the TENSA program that you did, or figure out what's the thing that each person needs as an individual. I think the saddest cases are when people are just like stuck in their cave of either, depression or anxiety and just can't figure out how to get out of it. And so I really am hoping that people feel empowered to talk to their clinicians and get help.
Yeah. And, again, I don't want to scare anyone. I don't think this is a minority of case, right? Like not everyone's going to have to go through intensive care program for like 8 weeks, as I did, but it can happen. And I think the message that I want to kind of message that is out there is that we don't be surprised by something that totally unexpected that arise, and whatever that is. And it could be a pure joy, like you don't have any, downside. And that's great too, if that's the situation for you. If something like, what seems like an unusual thing, like what I went through, totally unexpected comes up, like know that someone out there has experienced that. It's not just you, even if it feels like it's something that I never heard of before. Like reach out to, your community. What ended up happening to me is like, I did actually reach out to my, OBGYN care team. They didn't really have a lot of resources that they could point me to. And I didn't, because I was in such a anxious state, that I didn't talk to my own friends for a while, other than the friend that would introduce me to a psychiatrist. And I wish I did that earlier, because what ended up happening is like, I ended up reaching out to some of my friends. Hey, like, sorry, I haven't been out of touch. Like, I'm like in this like really bad state. And then my friend was like, hey, have you talked to so-and-so? Because 3 years ago, she actually posted about her experience on Facebook, and it sounds very similar to you. So then I actually went to her Facebook. This is an old like acquaintance from my business school who I haven't talked to in a while. And I went to her Facebook and I like scrolled up like 3 years ago. What did she write? And she wrote about her birth experience and postpartum issue that she had, which is different, but they had a lot of similarities with like this anxiety and whatnot. And I reached out to her, hey, like, can you share with me? And so she was, of course, so happy to share. And then she's the one who referred me to the program that I ended up enrolling. And so reach out to your community. Like, even if you totally didn't expect whatever came up, don't be taken back. If you reach out to people, like someone's going to have something that they can share that's going to help you find the way out.
So well said. I mean, everything that you're speaking about is really recreating the original village that our ancestors lived in, right? Like your village reminded you of a business school connect, and that village person was so eager to help you. I just think, I mean, that's the stuff that I find so beautiful, and what a great message for you to share. So thank you, Dawoon. So now thinking about you now, it's now been a couple of years. It sounds like you've done such great work in terms of your mental and emotional health and recovery. And you wear two hats. So you're co-founder of my favorite dating website ever, as well as it sounds like you and Jack are building a retreat together. And so I always think about just like the extra burden that is, being a mom, a parent, but also doing it with a career. How's that work-life balance been for you?
It's been, I wouldn't say it's like so easy, but I think I'm generally happy with how I'm balancing my time with family, including Sanara, and my work. And I think that super frightening experience that I had for about since 3 months postpartum until I was able to get off medications completely after a year, because I felt well enough to be able to, finally be able to sleep. I call it like the dark night of the soul experience. It was almost like a rebirth. Like I completely died, and then just kind of like became a new person myself. I think that experience gave me a lot of perspective. Like I never want to go through it ever again. But of course, now being on the other side, I'm so glad and grateful for the experience, because it taught me so much. Like, first and foremost is that like life is not in my control. Like I can prep all I want and try to plan everything like we talked about, but really I need to practice letting go more. There's something, it's a larger force in life that there is taking us somewhere, leading us somewhere in a very unexpected way that I think we just kind of need to surrender to. And so I've become a lot more relaxed, even with parenting, even with everything, and just try to kind of enjoy more on a daily basis. And, like the most important thing I think for me when it comes to parenting with Sanara is like, just enjoy Sanara. Like she's never going to be, 3 and 1 day year old, right? And so like, I'm just going to enjoy it. And so that gave me a huge perspective. And then the second thing is, I think I've just become like really grateful with like ordinary things in life. Like I am so happy when I get up in the morning because I slept. Even literally that I used to take for granted. Like, oh my God, what a privilege that I got to have a good night's sleep. And so I think because of that experience, I've become a lot more, just relax and be able to accept things more as is than trying to force things to be a certain way. And I think that's really been helpful to my work-life balance.
Yeah. No, there's something incredibly humbling when you endure an experience like yours that lets you like let go and release like the I'm clenching my fist, because when I like mentally think about what I think I physically am doing in a lot of things in my life, I'm holding on to them really tightly because I'm trying to control and shift and move things in my favor. But surrender is the most vulnerable state that we can be in, but it's also can be the most freeing. And when my brain thinks of surrender, I think literally you're floating, off the ground, and you're able to just kind of move more lightly with whatever gentle breezes life brings you. And I just love even just rejoicing the small moments, and enjoying Sanara as Sanara. That's so wonderful. And it sounds like you and Jack are working on this retreat. Would you say that some of your postpartum experiences and now having a different sense of, not to put words in your mouth, but maybe a different sense of spirituality, do you think that that's kind of informed your involvement with building a retreat and how you approach that?
I've definitely become much more of a spiritual person after that experience, because I actually got into a practice of praying to praying to, like, I'm just praying to any kind of God, right? Like Jesus, like anyone that I could hold on to every night, because I just was like, I can't do this alone. Please help me. And I don't pray as intensely, but that experience just definitely made me more spiritual. When it comes to the retreat, it was mostly the Jack's idea. So I wouldn't say it was informed by this experience. However, it began with my postpartum, that dark night of the soul incident, because after I got better, I felt so supported by my partner, Jack. That's when I was like, hey, you've done so much for me. I mean, he's been an amazing support and partner for all throughout our relationship, because he knows how my dream and ambition with Coffee Meets Bagel and like everything lifestyle kind of revolved around me and my like dedication to Coffee Meets Bagel. And I just felt like it was time that I step up to support him and his dream. And he's been wanting to create this retreat for this concept of silent observation retreat, not silent meditation, but a place where people can go to observe silence on their own. But not be restricted to meditations. He's been wanting to do this for a very long time, as long as I've known him. And
Same.
So, yeah. So then I was like, we need to do this, and I want to support you. And that's what kind of prompted us to move to Portugal and for him to just kind of start working on this project.
Yeah. No, it's inspiring. You and Jack are probably one of the two most unique people I know for many reasons, not even just Sonara's name ceremony, but even creating a retreat like that. And I imagine that's a space that can be healing for so many different types of people. And I really wish you guys the best on that endeavor.
Thank you.
Well, Dawoon, as we wrap up, I feel like you have shared so many good pieces of advice and wisdom and encouragement. But are there any kind of last words that you'd say to either someone who's planning on conceiving or pregnant and prepping for postpartum, or at home right now, sleep deprived with a newborn crying in their arms? What are your final words for those people?
Yeah, what I do want to share is that even through these ups and downs, I think motherhood is the most wonderful experience personally, that I feel very privileged to have been able to experience and still experiencing. Because for me, it's given me so much motivation to be better, become a better person, to model better behavior. It's just like such a amazing path to self-development. And it also gives me a lot of courage. Like whenever I feel scared of doing anything, I think about Sonara and I'm like, how do I want to show up for Sonara, right? Like that gives me a big courage to be able to do whatever I think I feel scared of doing or I don't want to do. And so in the end, I feel like even though I do a lot for Sonara, ultimately like I'm getting so much more from Sonara. And so if anyone is, I know motherhood is not for everyone, but if there's some people who are like, oh yeah, well, I don't know, I'm in the fence. I do want to put that information out there. It's such a beautiful, not easy, for sure challenging, but in the end, I think just ultimately such a rewarding experience.
Dawoon, thank you so much for your candor. Thank you so much for speaking your truth. I'm certain, 100% certain that there are many people who are going to listen to you and feel, strengthened and hopeful and empowered. So I just appreciate you so much. I'm so grateful for our friendship. I'm grateful for your website, your app. But I'm even more so grateful for our friendship and just the amazing, empowering woman that you are.
Thank you so much. And thanks for doing this and giving me an opportunity to share my story. With my postpartum, I really did want to have the platform to be able to share, just because I don't want people to kind of went through what I went through, which was, feeling really scared and alone and feeling like this was uniquely just like me. And so I'm so glad that you're doing this so we could share our stories.
Yeah. Well, no, exactly. I think I want to recreate that beautiful village that we keep talking about. And so I think that you're one of the wise women of the village, spreading your knowledge. So again, Dawoon, I'm so grateful for you and can't wait to catch up with you more in the times to come. Thank you very much for listening to The Golden Hour, the podcast community where moms and moms-to-be can hear stories from other mothers and learn from top experts in pregnancy and postpartum care. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share with your friends so we can reach more people like you. You can visit goldenhour.fm for more information, resources, and all other episodes. If you have any requests, questions, or suggestions for future episodes, please email me at hello@goldenhour.fm or leave us a comment at goldenhour.fm on Instagram. Looking forward to seeing you in the next episode. Until then, stay golden.